Hey guys, welcome back to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I'm your host, Nichole Eaton, author of the book, Rock Your Comeback, the Down-to-Earth Guide to Reclaiming Your Power, out this summer, and intuitive therapist. And as always, I'm here to help you through your comeback era and remind you of your power. Today, we're going to talk about some heavier things, but we've got this. We can manage it. And we do have to address the heavier things before we can move to the lighter things. We have to get those cleared out of our system, out of our energy, out of our minds to embrace the light. So we have to go through the dark first. But the good news is I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to walk through it together because you can do it. You're capable of doing it. You don't have to know how to move through it. You just have to know that and begin to believe that you will. That's a really important thing. So there's two important points when it comes to knowing that you're ready for your comeback. Okay. There's two things that you may notice in order to begin shifting your life for a better comeback, for your embracing your power again. One being that you might notice that you're really uncomfortable. You might notice that things just feel a little bit more uncomfortable every day. And that job that you once loved is feeling just a little more off every day. And maybe you're just feeling a little more anxious, like, man, there's got to be more. And I call this that inner like knock on the door of like, there's a knowing, there is just like something tapping on you on the inside saying, this isn't it anymore. And that's the crazy thing is we do get this like inner knowing that mixes with our reality. And we get this thing called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when your inner feelings, thoughts, and beliefs are not matching up or aligning, or desires are not matching up or aligning with your external world. So that might mean that the job that you were once loving, like something just starts to feel off about it. And then it just feels like, oop, this isn't it. And it will actually create anxiety. It will create anxiety within your person and maybe a little depression. And I know that those things are traditionally like really bad things, depression and anxiety, but here we're going to look at them as like our soul's check engine light. This is our soul's way of saying, hey, there's more for you. Hey, your desires are not in alignment with your current reality. How are we going to make different choices? And what a powerful place to be to have that recognition of like, okay, this isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't all there is for me. And I may need to make a different choice, but we have to get honest with ourselves. The second component of that. So if you're either in that discomfort, that beginning of like, oh, something isn't right. I don't like it here. I don't know what's happening, but I'm not as happy as I was. So there's that, or there's something that I refer to, and I do this a lot in my book as black hole moments. I call them black hole moments because what we know about black holes is things get sucked in and they don't ever return. And sometimes when you're in a black hole moment, so this may be massive job loss or big transition, project you invest in flops or fails, a major breakup or divorce that came out of nowhere. It's like an upheaval that was not by your choosing. Okay. That's usually a black hole moment. You didn't choose this, but you're here, you're surviving through it, you're living through it. And it feels like maybe you're not going to come out of it. Like it's hard to envision energy when you're in that heavy energy. It's hard to envision yourself in a different or better energy. So we have these two things that feel heavy in our lives or feel like we need a change, and we either have a choice to make a change or we have had the change happen to us. Okay. It wouldn't be fair of me to be like, hey, I've got your back. I'm walking you through your comeback if I didn't tell you my own comeback story. So if you have time and patience today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about some ways to neutralize this black hole. But first I have to talk about mine a little. Okay. So when I was 19, I got married and I moved to a different city to start my bachelor's degree. I had already gotten my associate's degree and I'd moved to a new city. And I was so excited because it felt like the world was at my fingertips. It felt like I had all the potential in the world to make new friends and to have new experiences. And within a week of moving to this new city to pursue this last 2 years for my bachelor's degree, I found out I was unexpectedly expecting. Was the baby of my family. I never really envisioned having kids, and I had actually never even held a baby up until I held my daughter. And so that news was jarring to me. Okay. I believe everything happens for a reason, and she is the freaking coolest human in the universe. I love her to pieces, and I'm so grateful for all the pieces that she unlocked within me. But at the time I was devastated. I thought my life was over. I had professors telling me I needed to drop out of their classes because because I wouldn't be able to keep up pregnant. I had family members who were like, how are you going to be a mom and finish school? Like, you're going to neglect your kid. And I mean, I had a lot of negative energy coming at me, and I came around to accepting that I was going to be a mom and trying to gear up to be the best 20-year-old mother I could be. And I ended up having my daughter, and she was the best baby. Like, I have no complaints. Like, after having my second daughter at a later date, she was a little wild. If I would have had her first, God only knows. But Cameron was an incredible, incredible baby, but I was not built for the lack of sleep. I really, really struggled after I gave birth to her. And it very well could have been postpartum depression, but at the time I didn't have anybody around me like helping. And my parents had also, at the same time I found out I was pregnant, my parents had finalized their divorce. So my mom moved far, far away. It was a weird time period in my life where I felt like I had no home because I had just moved from the only city I had ever lived in to this hour and a half away city. And my parents had divorced. So like, I couldn't even go back home to be like, oh, and we just really didn't have any help with our daughter. And it was a very lonely, hard time in my life. And I went into this crazy deep depression. I honestly feel like the first year of her life, I couldn't tell you. I tried my best, but like, it was hard to get out of bed a lot of the time. And I did it, but I felt like I was just going through the motions. And you would have never known. Nobody would have ever known I was as depressed as I was because I made it look good on, social media or whatever. Like, I told everybody, oh my God, it's great being a parent. But I was so depressed. And the whole time I just kept thinking like, this is the rest of my life. Like, my rest of my life is not sleeping. And the rest of my life is pumping breast milk in the bathroom on my lunch breaks and carrying a cooler around with me on campus because I, was determined to nurse. And it also isolated me from everybody because I was 20 years old. I wasn't even 21. I wasn't even legal to drink. And I was responsible for a whole nother human while everybody else was like turning 21 and partying. And it was really hard for me. I just didn't adjust well to that whole time period. And on top of that, my husband was working a commission-based job. He was working 12-hour days with a 2-hour commute, and he only had 1, maybe 2 days off a week. And commission-based jobs are hard in general because you don't know what you're getting paid. Like, there is no budget because you cannot plan for it. So we really had, some weeks were fine. And some weeks it was like, what utility do we pay in case one gets shut off, which was like, okay, it's the middle of the winter, so we need heat over electric. Like, lights are probably fine if, off if we have heat. So it was a really hard period of my life. And like, I barely saw my husband at the time. Like, it was really hard. And I felt very alone and extremely depressed. And I would love to be like, hey, I just, turn that right around. But the truth is I didn't. I struggled with that well until after I had my second daughter. I mean, it wasn't probably until she was about a year old. I had her a week after I graduated with my master's degree. And it wasn't until probably a year after she was born that I started to like feel that inner nudge that I was just talking about, that like noticing of like, this cannot be it. Like, I cannot keep going through life like this. I am unwell. I feel unwell. I'm physically unwell. I don't have any time to myself. I don't have any friends that I'm really close to. Like, I'm just going through the motions, and this can't be it. And it was from that place of this can't be it that I began to start to dive into the world of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I was obviously going for a master's in mental health counseling. So I was in it all day. I was thinking about it all day. Then I began to stumble upon the law of attraction. And that right there was what changed everything, which is why I preach it so freaking hard to you guys, because the power of the mind and the power of energy has this magical, incredible component that I know firsthand brought me from a place of deep depression to just feeling really good. And then from there, I was able to make these incremental shifts in my life that made a profound impact. And like, I'm sitting here in my office that's gorgeous and beautiful in my dream home that I'm obsessed with. And I'm looking out over my pool in my backyard with the waterfall. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this that wherever you are in your life right now, whatever hard thing is happening, whatever feels challenging and like, how the hell am I going to move past this? If I can do it, you can do it. If I can go from a place of like wanting to drive my car off the road to genuinely loving my life, loving having an incredible relationship with my kids, having a level of success and abundance that I'm just still in awe at. And I'm, again, not saying that to brag, saying it because I want you to feel like, oh, okay, if Nichole could do it from a place of really deep depression, I can do it too. I can make my comeback. I can find my power again. And that is what this whole podcast is about, is teaching you how to recognize your power. Because I would go back and tell that girl crying over that version of me crying over the sink holding that pregnancy test, that we were going to be just fucking fine. She wouldn't have believed me. And I'm going to tell you that same thing so you can hold on to it and keep it in your back pocket, because I'm going to give you every single tool I use, not just for my clients, but for everyone. Like, this isn't just for my clients, but I've done this too. I have lived and breathed and done these tactics and every tool that I'm going to teach you. And I know the bottom of my person, it works. So the first thing we have to do, though, is we have to walk through that black hole. And we do that by taking everything a day at a time, because what you're going to want to do is envision where you want to be and recognize that you're not there yet. And it's going to feel like a really, really long ways away, and you're going to feel really defeated. So we're going to take it just to the end of the day, just for today. How do I want to wake up? How do I want to take care of myself? How do I want to get through today? What is something that will bring me joy today? And we begin to ask the questions, because this is going to help you focus on your power just for today, because we really can only control the moment, and we can make small changes that will build and create this beautiful momentum for you in your life. The second thing we get to do is we get to alchemize the heavy feelings. So if you're having a hard time and you're like, this just feels overwhelming, I don't even know how to take it a day at a time, we're going to neutralize the energy. If we think of, when you feed a seagull a chip at the beach, that the 70 other seagulls come, that is how our momentum and our domino effect of our thoughts are. When you have a really good day, you see good day things, like more good shit keeps happening to you. And when you have a bad day, it's kind of the same vibe. More bad shit seems to happen to you. So at any given moment of your day, we can neutralize that energy a couple different ways. One, by breathing. That's silly. That's stupid. That's easy. Everybody's doing it automatically. Let's do it on purpose. So if you bring your attention and your awareness to where your airflow is in your body, it's a variation of meditation, and it's bringing your mind and your energy into the present moment, and it's slowing everything down, and it's clearing out that energy. And you can do it in a couple different ways. So we can breathe just by following the flow of air very slowly down through your body and back out. Or we can create a mantra of I'm safe. It's safe to be myself. I release anything that's blocking me or making me feel stuck. Or we can do something that is called box breathing. This is a really good distraction and calming technique, because you're going to breathe in increments of 4. So you're going to breathe in for a count of 4, hold that breath at the top for a count of 4, exhale over a count of 4, and leave the exhale out for a count of 4. So you can kind of envision it like a box, breathing in over 4, holding it for 4, coming down for 4, holding that for 4. So those are just a couple ways that you can begin to neutralize this heavy energy, is just by breathing. You can also neutralize it by finding something that brings you joy. If it's like, okay, so I know that I feel better when I have a cup of coffee outside while I watch the sunrise. That's my joy for the day. Oh, I know that if I make a little parfait and I do it in like a little champagne glass or like your favorite dish, that's a way to start to create a domino of positive momentum. Being intentional about bringing joy into your life is such a beautiful way to create momentum into positive energy. And again, it can be as simple as like, maybe it's a dance party. Maybe you shake it off. Maybe you put on music and put on your favorite song and sing at the top of your lungs. Being intentional about what will I do in this moment that just shifts it in my favor a tinge. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to go, out to dinner. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be absolutely free. You can breathe. You can do a stretch. You can go for a walk. You can do anything that will shake up and move that energy. And the last thing we have to be thinking about when we're in black hole moments is, how am I making meaning out of it? And this can be true for the discomfort as well. Are you deciding that this has to be your life? I know for me, I was during that time period of my life where I was in a really dark place, is I was like, oh, this is it for me. This is it. I am trapped. I am stuck. I am going to be just a slave to 2 little people my entire life. Like, this will be it. 18 years. Sign me up. And what I had to be willing to do was saying, this isn't it. I wonder what else could be. I wonder how I might find joy in this moment. I wonder what that could look like. And curiosity is a beautiful fucking place to start, and an easy place to start, because you can begin to get curious about what might feel a little bit better. And it doesn't have to bring you existential joy. Like, you can have the tiny increments that all add up to something beautiful, but you have to be curious and you have to watch about the meaning you're making. If you had a job loss, it doesn't mean that you're going to be like homeless on the streets and you're never going to find a great job again. And the job is never going to have the great, benefits again, like whatever bullshit bullshit you're telling yourself. Try to catch the stories that are predictive in a fear-based sense and not always true. Be mindful of how you're speaking to yourself about what's happening, and be willing to accept that maybe you don't actually know what's going to happen next, but be willing to believe it can be something a little bit better. What if it could be? What if it could be really nice? What if it could be really fun? What if it could be way better than what you had before? What if you felt even better? What if it felt free? How could that feel? What would you dress like if you were like in a really good mood? How would you act? How would you go through your day? What would you plan into your day? Curiosity. The cool thing about our black hole moments is that we don't have to know how we're going to get out of them. We don't have to know how we're going to make our life feel better. We don't have to know how, but we have to be willing to believe, because when we're willing to believe, our brain will start to search for evidence and proof of what we believe. And if we have a willingness to believe that it can get better, we don't know how, but we believe that it will, that can alone start to shift everything. Because if your brain is looking for proof, which it will, with most of the things you tell it, it will look for proof. If you're beginning to shake that up, you're allowing yourself to see things from a new perspective. Another thing that I was talking a lot about in my reels recently, so if you don't follow me on Instagram, make sure you do, because I post good content for you free all day, every day on there, NicholeEaton.xo. And one of my clients was saying, I should feel better by now. I should be working more towards my goals. And sometimes we have to close our eyes, put our hand over our heart, and ask the question, like, is this goal right for me right now? Okay, if so, what action am I willing to take today to move towards it? If it's not, what might be a better fit? If we can get out of the should and move into a place where we are putting ourselves back in a power position of action, that changes everything. Should creates guilt, decision creates power. If it's not the right fit, that's fine. What might feel better? We can do a lot of reclaiming our power in small moments like that, of recognizing when you're shitting yourself, when you're creating guilt, and say, okay, my priority is to take care of myself. How might I do that today? And lastly, last but not least, I really believe disruption is invitation. I believe those black hole moments unlock so many personality traits and versions of you and resiliencies that may not have escaped before. And so use the disruption as an invitation. What is it showing you about yourself? What will you learn? Who will you connect with? I think it's so exciting to think about it in that way of like, what are some really cool things that might come from this? Or maybe a past experience of like, that you've had before that was hard, and you were like, oh, but this led me to connect with this person. This person's been like my best friend since then. And this connected me to a different job. And man, that really worked out for me. If we look in the past, a lot of times we can see the trail of crumbs that led us to a better spot in the past, and we can use that as momentum forward. And last but not least, we have to get back to the basics. Like I said, if you're the seed being planted, we have to nourish the soil, which means we have to get a good night's sleep, finding ways to do that. We have to take good care of ourselves. We have to treat ourselves as someone we love. When we're shit talking, we have to ask ourselves, what would we say if our buddy or best friend was doing that, or our kids were doing that? What would we say to them? The ability to pause, think, and then approach instead of react. That is our power. That's taking our power back. So if you need to go back to the basics of making sure you're eating well and hydrating and taking really good care of yourself as you're going through this process of emerging into your comeback, that is what we'll do. Okay. So take really good care of yourself right now, and we can walk through this together. Okay. We're going to, because our next section, our next podcast episode is getting into the power of changing our mind and recognizing the power of our mind, which is something I geek out about. So I know you're going to geek out about it. And I cannot wait to tell you some of my stories about how I learned I was intuitive, which is a very fun crowd pleaser. So make sure to catch the next couple of episodes over the next couple of weeks, because they're going to be fun for you and exciting. And yeah, I feel really, really excited to share all of this with you. But if you're in your black hole moment, hang in there. Better things are coming. And I'm going to walk through it with you every step of the way. So make sure, if you haven't, leave me a positive review, subscribe so you catch every single Wednesday. And again, I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful that you're here, and I'm grateful that you've decided for yourself that there's that little knock that you're ready to make your comeback. I'll catch you next week.